IO, and so in this video we're going to move on again with initial config 3. So we've got the original device set up, we've got our firewall rules as we can see, we set up our default login, and so now we should be able to pass traffic through it, and now we're going to look to how we can create a base level of security on these on the firewall. So quickly, quick transparency declaration. So rather than the other firewall that I was working on is not licensed, and for the subscriptions obviously you need a license, and I was just too attached to this firewall particularly that I've got here that wasn't really doing anything else in the lab. So I've just lifted the config off of the config firewall that we had and put it onto my Nevada firewall for the rest of this demonstration, so that we can do the subscription side of things without me having to deregister a firewall and then register this one. So that's why we've got PA VM Nevada in the top and in config demo. So now we've got this done, let's go through this sort of quickly. Let's see how easy it is to set up. So under our device, once we've got our licenses in place, we can come to the dynamic updates and we can set these. Okay, so we're going to do check now. Always do check now, because the links here seem to shift, and they're suddenly not relevant, and you can't download from them, so you can't be sure that link's always going to work. So it's just best practice to do check now. So what we're going to do is we're going to download our antivirus. I'm going to go for the latest one, and I'm going to pause this whilst it does it. Okay, so that's now done. Apologies if it looks like the screen's gone a bit weird. So one of the comments on one of the previous videos was that the text was very, very small. So I'm trying to remediate that by just putting it to 110% on the zoom. I forgot to do it at the start of the recording. Apologies. So hopefully this will be clearer. If not, again, please leave the comments. Anything that I can do to make the videos better and easier to view, then we'll do them. Okay. So now we're going to install that, and then we just simply click on install. If you wanted to look at the release notes, you can. And just as a way of tidying up as well, you can get rid of previous downloads and previous versions of the antivirus and application and threats, and that's just to save space on the firewall. I guess as you get bigger and bigger firewalls is not necessarily that important, but it's always good practice to make sure you remove those old files. Okay, so we're going to install this now. And then that'll install, and it effectively does an auto commit in the background to commit those antivirus definitions. Okay, see it's saying its configuration committed successfully, and to be honest, that was an inordinate amount of time. Don't know if that's more indicative of the size of VM it is, or the ESXi it's sat on. Still stuck at 60%, so we'll just let that finish. Now, the risk of taking up even more time. So now we moved on to the applications and threats. So we need to download those as well. You can do multiple downloads, and I think it handles it just fine. I tend to do it on bigger devices only, though. These are only VM100s. Okay, so that's now downloaded. And we're going to install that. We could review the policies and review the apps. So looking at whatever policies will be affected by these applications. The new application definitions, as you know, can sometimes cause issues where an application was allowed through previously, either through being unknown or being seen as something else, simply SSL or simply web browsing. Now if a new application comes out, that connectivity may now not work, because now it's being seen as something else. So if it then becomes an application that the firewall was looking for and that's not allowed through, that can stop. In this particular instance, we're building the firewall from scratch. There's no traffic going through it, and there has been no traffic going through it, so we can just install that. We do have the option to disable new apps in content update for that very reason, so we can disable any new apps in the content update to make sure that all our traffic at the minute stays as it is, and then you can review it later. And that's something that really does need looking at as a separate video because there's a whole process around that. And then from Panorama, it then is again because it extends to be in the shared applications and so on. So we're just going to install that. Okay, and that's now committed as well. So now we have our antivirus and we have our applications and threats up to date. And then finally we're going to do our wildfire, which shouldn't take as long as the other two. If anybody's watching the clock down the bottom, you can see the elapsed time on this is actually quite large. That's 99% straight away. See if we can get this installed quicker. Okay. I'm going to install. And thankfully that's installed quickly. So now we've got that. Now we need to make sure that we're going to keep up to date as well. So we're going to go with the antivirus schedule, update schedule, and we'll go with hourly. These are the best practice ones that I pulled actually off of the Palo website. So we can go for 15 minutes past the hour. Download and install, and we can also select as well a threshold. So the threshold is basically this has to the file that is being downloaded has to be this many hours old, and what it will do is it will keep checking for that, and if the file isn't that many hours old, it will then wait, and it will wait again for the next one. So 6 hours is a good number as far as I'm concerned. So if 6 hours old, that means it's had plenty of time to go out and be evaluated, in which you're basically not the guinea pig for any updates or anything like that. So that's done. So that schedule's done. Applications and threats, what we're going to do is we're going to go with every 30 minutes, 7 minutes past the hour, and do download and install. And again, we'll do 6 hours on here again, so we've got 6 hours. And we've also got the disable new apps in content update, which we can do. That's again depending on your in your environment. If you need to make sure that the applications that are going in there are going to be allowed or not cause any problems, then you need to do that and then review it later, and then allow extra time to review new app IDs. So this is basically setting the amount of time the firewall waits, as it says there, before installing content updates, contain new app IDs. You can use this wait period to assess and adjust your security policy based on the new app IDs. Okay, so we're going to do that. And then our wildfire. So wildfire, previously it was every 15 minutes and then every minute, and now we have real time, so we always set it to real time so we've got the most coverage we possibly can. Okay, so once we've done that, we can then start to look at the profiles that we're going to put on, and there's a couple that are actually come down with like a best practice sort of pre-configuration. Okay, so if you look at antivirus, so we've got the antivirus profiles here. Now antivirus is again, so this is looking in these protocols, as it says here. It's looking for these ones here, and it's looking for any virus signatures that it can find within those profiles. So you've got signature exceptions, which you won't have, and then the wildfire inline machine learning. So if you've got that machine learning subscription, this is going to give you the opportunity to set that action. Now again, best practice would be to simply clone this one. So if we clone it, rename it our antivirus profile, and then we can edit it as well. So then it's able to be edited, and we can do a enable packet capture as well, because we can't edit the one that's already on it. Then we've got our anti-spyware. Anti-spyware is hosts that are calling out to command and control centers and things like this. So it's outbound communication it's looking at. I've just clicked add there, which I shouldn't have done. So there we can see we've got a default here, and these have their own rule bases in them. So you've got the policies that you've got there, and then severity critical, and default action for the signature would be the default. So you would have, if you show all signatures, you can see that the action for it is going to be alert for auto-run user agent traffic. Sorry. If you wanted to change that, if you wanted to change the default action, then you could go for simple critical. You could then change that action there. It'd be a lot better to actually create specific rules, is signature policies. We've got our DNS policies here. So this is our default Palo Alto DNS, which is what everybody gets, and then you've got DNS security, and this becomes valid once you've got the DNS security subscription. And then you've got a DNS exception, so you can control what exceptions you've got for false positives and for testing and so on. Okay, and then a strict one there, you've got 5 policies in there as well. So what we've got here, we've got simple informational is what they've added, so it's an informational, and then default, and that's disabled. And then you can see the difference between the two. So for a strict policy, you've got critical, high, and medium are all reset both, whereas they've got the default action for the specific signature there. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we've got a really secure policy from the outset, and we're going to rename that our anti-spyware profile, and I will just spell that correctly. Okay, so then we can move on to our vulnerability protection. Vulnerability protection is the old IDS or IPS. Well, I say old, that's what it is. And then we have a default and we have a strict as well. So the strict has got the 10 rules in it. And we can see again that we're looking at essentially we're looking at changing the actions. So we have simple client, informational, and we'll just have a quick look at these. So we're gonna clone the strict one. Okay, because I want to make this as secure as I possibly can before we've had a chance to evaluate. A lot of times people are looking to secure this without actually knowing vulnerability, right? So a lot of people look to create these rules without understanding their own network, and that's why a lot of times profiles like this will get enabled and then they'll suddenly be disabled because they're just breaking things. So this has to be an iterative process, like it is with all IDS, so that we can make sure that we're not catching stuff we shouldn't be catching, basically. Okay, so simple critical, again, that's the rule name, the threat name. You can change that to any threat name. It will work as part of the signature name, or the signature containing the entered text. And then we've got our action. The host type, client, so is it client that's calling out or is it server that's coming back, so which direction is it in. We've got our packet capture as well. Do a single packet or extended capture. We do an extended capture as a general rule, you would tend to do that, and then you can use to match the CVEs or the vendor IDs. Okay, so the vulnerability profiles need the rules in them because that's going to run on the rules. Okay, so we've created that, and again we have the more strict actions for the signatures. So URL filtering again comes with a default for URL filtering. The default has one of these. The biggest bugbear I have is it has allow categories. Now, if we just clone this again, so if we clone this to ours and we create our URL filtering, okay, so we look at our URL filtering. So what do we want to do? Things like, obviously, we've got our block categories. So we have our abuse, drugs, adult, so on. Basically what Palo Alto put down, most people would want to block. Command and control, you'd want to block it, and so on. But the important thing to remember about URL filtering is that a log is not created for an allow action. So where you've got an allow action there, you wouldn't see a log for that. And then it sometimes confuses people when they look into the logs. They know they've got URL filtering configured, and they know people are going to sites, and they can't see that. So the easiest way to do this would be to type allow in there. Okay, that now filters all of our allow categories that we've got. For some reason, I see why, it's because alert there, and then we have an allow there. So that's because it's simply a string match. And then we can set all the actions here. We can set them all to alert. So now that's all alert, and if we drop that, we can still see that our ones that were blocked are blocked. Okay, so if we go back to allow again, and then here we can set to alert, and now we have We've got our blocked stuff being blocked, but we're also going to get a log for everything else that's going to, okay? So we go through that and we check that. So that means now that all of our categories are going to be alerted to or blocked. We get URL filtering settings. We can log the container page only. We can enforce safe search. So this basically adds a header to it and it enforces a safe search. Doesn't always work 100% of the time, but it's worth doing anyway. And then you've got HTTP header logging. Am I going to log my user agent, the referrer, or my X forwarded for? That all depends on your environment, how much you want to keep on your logs. Bear in mind as well, the more stuff that you log, obviously the quicker it takes up the space in your logs. User credential detection is based on user IP mapping, so it's looking at what credentials people are entering into websites to avoid phishing and that kind of attack, or credential harvesting or so on. And then we've got HTTP header insertion, where we can actually just insert headers, and we have different ones as well. So for Google Apps access control, we can then for those domains, we're going to insert this header and we're going to give it this value, and then the value we're going to give it, and that will mean that every time we go to those domains, we're going to insert our header for apps access control. So we can only, people running through our firewall can only access the apps that we want, because you've got the authentication through there, sort of the validation through there. Then inline ML. So we've got our inline machine learning models as well, and they do pretty much speak for themselves. And we've got block alert or phishing detection alert. Most times I would set that to alert, to be honest, when you're first starting out, because you don't really know what the traffic's going to be like, and you don't want to start blocking stuff straight away that could potentially be legitimate. Another important thing as well is just remember that at the top of that category, and if we just create a custom category, so if we just put just a random cisco.com and so put a sample category there, and it's a URL list. And now we can see, if we go back to our URL filtering, we can see that at the top of our URL filtering list, when it finally gets back there, we'll see that we've got our custom URL category and we've got a sample for that, and then we can take specific action based on that as well. Now, so wherever you put a custom category in, that will always be, that is dreadful. Why? Just do it. Just do it. Right. Thank you. So wherever you put a custom category in, then the action for that is evaluated and taken before the rest of it. Okay, so we're going to go OK. Wildfire analysis is going to be the direction of the wildfire, and if you have like a private wildfire appliance, you can select that in there. This is read only anyway. But we'll use a default, because default covers pretty much everything. Okay, so then our security profile groups, we can add a new one, which is going to be our default group, and then we can select our newly created. I'm convinced I changed the name of that. Okay, and I'm going to use a default one. So now we've created our security profile group. I'm just going to go and check the name on that one. Yes, I've spelled it. Okay, so I spelled it wrong. But now we've got that, so now we can apply those protections to our security rules. Another quick side note here whilst it's loading is, if you were to be having traffic coming in, so anything that's on the outside interface where somebody's heading to it, you wouldn't want to put a URL filtering profile next. It doesn't really make much sense, and can lead to, they discovered it led to a potential denial of service attack. So we've got LAN to internet. There's a couple of ways of doing it. I'll show you the quick way of doing it. So we simply click on the profile, none, call it a group. Then we've got a default group. If we wanted to do it by profile, we could select it by profile there, and again you can just have the profiles that you want. Okay, and then as we get to the bottom, I just paused there because I went through it. So as we get to the bottom there, we need to consider the intra-zone default and inter-zone default. Now, we've overridden them so that they have logging. So we're also going to just create in there as well. We're going to do the log forwarding. You have to remember that the intra-zone default is the one that a lot of stuff will start to run on if you don't actually create a drop all above that rule. So as we've got traffic running across it, it would be beneficial to create put profiles on it. Sorry, to put security profiles on that rule. But of course, that's never going to be users getting to the internet or coming back the other way. So in this particular instance, what I would suggest is we simply do our antivirus, or anit virus as it is, vulnerability. We can do our anti-spyware, leave the URL filtering, and then the wildfire analysis. And that way we have then now those profiles as denoted there, and we know that that intra-zone traffic is being evaluated as well and being scanned for security issues. And then on our inter-zone default, which is also overridden, we're just going to simply put the log forwarding profile in. So now we've created our rules. We're now on to the point where we've started to secure stuff. We've created our schedules for keeping our applications and our antivirus up to date, and we've created our own URL filtering, antivirus, even though I spelt it wrong, profiles and so on, so that we can start to customize everything for our environment as opposed to just using the out-of-box profiles that are given to us. Okay, so that's it for this video, and in the next one we'll just carry on configuring the firewalls.